Yeah, right around 86 degrees, 87 degrees.
And what does that mean scientifically, if anything?
There's a lot of heat content, right, that this storm can tap into. Once the water temperature is at 80 degrees or more, that is the threshold usually for a strengthening storm, 80 degrees or more. But again, it's not feeding off of Tampa Bay. It's feeding off the Gulf of Mexico, where, just offshore of, say, Fort Myers Beach area, the water temperature is 88, 89 degrees. Off Clearwater Beach, further north, it's about 85, 86 degrees. Either way, those water temperatures are between 85 and 90. And if the storm is right over top of 85 to 90 degree water, again, that's prime breeding ground for this storm. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised. Would be surprised if they bump this up to 160 based on what Jeff was talking about with a hurricane hunter and dropping 700 feet of elevation instantly flying through this.
Let's check this out. Let's go to Twitter. And again, I can bring up tweets with hashtag HeyJB.
Already.
Yeah.
Now, I had a rain gauge very similar to this. Because they're expecting up to 20 inches of rain.
Yep.
So people with a 5-inch rain gauge, that sucker's going to be full pretty quickly. So as for now, 3 inches, but got a lot more on the way. Thanks for sending that in.
Get to this question and comment coming in from YouTube Live. We're also monitoring Facebook Live. Inside Sky. Oh, wait, the 11 o'clock update is in. Yep. So hold on, we're coming back to you, Inside.
So the only difference I'm seeing right now is forward speed slowed down to 9 miles per hour. It looks like the wind stayed the same. I don't know if the cone is out yet. I don't think the new cone is out yet. Usually what happens is the National Hurricane Center will output the data first. The cone still looks very similar in southern Polk County.
Hey, Orlando, this is coming your way.
Yeah, definitely. In Orlando, being
over Disney World ever.
Well,
this is something that maybe our audience might be able to help us do a little bit of research with, because we have to be cognizant of what is going on with the storm right now and helping people out in the immediacy. And that's a little bit of trivia that's not really necessarily all that important for us, but we're talking about hurricane impacts potentially somewhere around Disney World, right. Universal, and the theme park capital of the country.
So, the eye of a hurricane gets filled in, right? Once it's on shore, it doesn't take long for that eye to kind of disappear because the storm weakens, right? And I just don't think you would see an eye like clear air,
right,
in Orlando, because it's too far inland, even if it came in from the East Coast. And Charlie moved pretty quickly, but the eye was filled in by the time it made its way into Orlando. Now, if you're talking the center of the storm, yes, obviously, of course. Charlie was still at least a category 1, if not a week 2, as it moved over top of Orlando. And the center of this storm looks to be pretty close to Orlando, maybe just south and to the east of it. But as far as the eye, JB, the eye right now, we measure to be 30 miles long. Once this gets on shore, the eye's not going to be there much longer. Do you see what I'm saying? So we're not going to see that clear air around, the inside of the eye wall.
Just monitoring our feeds here. I don't know if we'll be able to get, but look, Central Florida is going to see impacts, regardless of whether or not they have an eye of note in Central Florida. They're Central Florida, as far as Orlando goes, they're in for a good hit here. They are. There's no doubt.
Yeah, for them, definitely.
And let's talk about this as well, Eric. Sorry to interrupt you,
No.
but it's really important for us to be on landfall watch. Now, let me explain to our audience how landfall works. The National Hurricane Center is the only one that will declare landfall. We don't do it. And any meteorologist that says that landfall has happened, that's just them, trying to make a splash online or something like that. And the National Hurricane Center declares landfall. They will put out an alert, usually in previous storms we've covered. They put out an alert saying landfall has occurred, and they put out the location. And I remember I have memories of various storms in the past, from Michael to Dorian to others, where they put out the alert and they say, this is the town where landfall is occurring. And that's kind of a moment in history, because we're talking about a U.S. landfall. Now, we have had a landfall with this system already in Cuba, but we are probably how far away? Probably 2 hours,
2 to 3 hours
away from a landfall declaration.
Right. And they did, the National Hurricane Center did issue an advisory when it made landfall in Cuba. And they also issue an advisory once it's back out into the open water. So if that is the case off the East Coast, that would be, sometime late in the day, Thursday, off the Space Coast, they would make, they would issue another advisory saying, okay, Ian is now over open water again.
Shout out to Jerry in our comment section. He says #KJB Hurricane Elena came close to Disney back in 1985. That we'll of course look that up and check that out. Reasons. But we are closing in on landfall coverage here. We're in landfall coverage, but we're closing in on landfall declaration the next several hours, folks, because you can see that 4 at the bottom of your screen, right off of Fort Myers. This is going to be happening in the next couple of hours. All right, as promised, let's get to the live Q&A. Use a hashtag, ask a question, either for myself or Eric. And this one is from Inside. I thought east side of hurricanes were worse. Why is northwest considered the worst part? So Jeff was explaining this yesterday about how this storm has a pretty even allocation of rainfall totals, correct? As far as around the storm. But
it's more to the northwest. So if we bring up the wobble tracker, I'll bring up the wobble tracker.
Well, can I do it? No, I can't do it right at the moment.
I've got it.
Okay. There it is.
All right. So let me zoom in here. The reason is featuring those heavier showers on the north and northwest side. Also, I mean, look at the track over the past 15 minutes or so. We were talking about noticing the wobble, and look at it, JB. obviously, even though the eye was elongated for a short period of time, you can see almost a due east movement, right? Look at that. The end of that faded yellow line is a due just north of east movement, which would suggest a possible landfall, in the Sanibel area, Captiva area. You see that?
I do.
Yeah, it's obvious.
So here, and reading off the names on your screen here: Sarasota, Englewood, Boca Grande, Sanibel, Fort Myers Beach. The worst is about to come.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. I mean, it looks like the eye wall is starting to make its way toward Boca Grande. It's called the Cape Hayes Peninsula that separates the Gulf of Mexico and Charlotte Harbor on the east side. And that is, Placida is down in that area as well. That area is going to be experiencing eye wall, wind, rain, and the worst of the conditions starting now. And then over the next couple of hours, and then it'll be in the eye, and then it'll experience the other end of the eye wall, the south end of the eye wall. So they're going to experience both.
A double whammy.
And it's going to be interesting if somehow, some way, we actually get a camera within the eye. Imagine if we could get that and see sunshine after that eye wall moves through. We might be able to. It all depends on how long the eye stays well defined and, stays sunny and clear.
Kristen wants to know what, again, we popped this up before, but Kissimmee, the Disney area, what do we say for our folks in Central Florida?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, Kissimmee and Disney, a brief period of hurricane force wind, brief period. Hurricane force wind gust over 75 miles per hour, definitely a likelihood. Tropical storm force wind 60 to 70 for several hours, definitely likely as well. So strong wind, and again, with a possibility of being on the north and west side of the storm, 16 to 20 inches. Some places will get 2 feet of rain out of this.
Eric, I'm going to have to throw you up on screen momentarily. I'm going to have to step away for just a quick moment and just have some conversations here with our team. I'm going to leave you up to kind of recap where we are. I'm going to put you up with the weather computers. Is that cool by you? And we can just kind of reset for our audience. We are coming back to your comments here, everybody. I just need to take a brief break. I'll be back in approximately 2 to 3
What
minutes.
I can do is I can just do another weather hit at the wall. Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to go through the graphics I've got now. Let me quickly update a couple, but for the most part, conditions are expected to be as they were expected to be a couple of hours ago. All right. So here we are. Again, this is the wobble tracker. And as you can see, a large and powerful major and then making its way out into the Atlantic as a tropical storm and making yet another landfall in Georgia, possibly in the Savannah area as a tropical storm. So again, the close-up showing you right around 2 to 3 o'clock, I'd say probably closer to 2, is when we're expecting landfall. And then it moves to the northeast. It moves through parts of Sarasota County, DeSoto, even parts of Manatee, Hardee County, Polk County, just to the south and southeast of Lakeland, Winter Haven, US 17, US 27.
Eric, I want to hop in here and just take our folks really quickly to live to Sarasota County. Stand by.
Is being shut down, but we've heard the warnings from so many people, stay put or you run the risk of not being able to be helped should you need it. So we're still waiting on the worst of it. It is getting worse by the minute every time we visit with you, and we're here watching it until that moment arrives and throughout this storm making landfall here. And just again, for our viewers who are just joining us, if you're curious exactly where we are, we're about 12 miles from the Gulf of Mexico, according to our maps, and we're situated right maybe a mile from the Charlotte County line, the southernmost tip of Sarasota County, watching this as Ian rolls through. Josh, Stacy, back to you.
We apologize for some of the loud audio there. Let's get back to Eric Stone at the wall. Eric, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You may resume your forecast there.
No, there's no problem whatsoever. Anyway, the close-up, as you can see, showing a landfall somewhere around 2 o'clock this afternoon in the Englewood area, Placida, Boca Grande, possibly even as far south as Sanibel or Captiva. But again, it's going to be a Category 4 at the low end, right? It could even be a Category 5 once this thing makes landfall. Again, right around 2 o'clock this afternoon. 12 hours later, it moves all the way to Polk County. Yesterday, we were looking at this, and it looked like it would take 24 hours before Ian made its way from the coast of Sarasota County all the way into Polk County. And now things are looking a lot better in respect of the forward speed. And you can see the European model is taking this a little bit quicker into portions of west central Florida and into Polk County by the overnight hours compared to the GFS that still lags to the south. And then the GFS tends to bring this a little bit further to the north, a little quicker, in fact. And then, well, the storms both take this, I should say, both models take this pretty close to the Orlando area and then out of here as we head into late Thursday and also into Friday. So again, it does look like this storm will be out of here a lot faster than originally thought, and then skirting up the East Coast toward the Jacksonville area. So again, model plots are suggesting that this one will just continue that north-northeast movement into Osceola County, into Orange County, into possibly Volusia, and up toward the St. Augustine and Jacksonville area. Again, hurricane conditions likely from Polk County westward to Pinellas, as well as Hillsborough County, all the way south and eastward, including the entire portion of southwest Florida. Once you're into Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus counties, that's where you can expect tropical storm force wind. Storm surge warnings are in effect. We have seen water being pulled out of Tampa Bay. We are seeing the bottom of Tampa Bay in some areas because up to 11 feet of water has been pulled out of the Bay Area, right? All the way into the Gulf of Mexico. When this water comes back into the Bay, what's going to happen is it will create a small storm surge, possibly 2 to 4 feet. That is better news for Bay Area residents, Pinellas County residents, but further to the south, south of Sarasota County, we are looking at 12 to 18 feet, right? Not inches, 12 to 18 feet of storm surge from the southern end of Boca Grande, southern end of Cape Hayes Peninsula, as we head toward the Lee County Islands, Fort Myers, Estero Island, and Sanibel and Captiva. So again, this is going to be an historic storm. We're going to be talking about this for a long, long time, JB.
Folks, we're going to be sending things over to our TV signal really quickly to tell you what's going on WFLA News Channel 8. We'll be right back on Tracking the Tropics.
Josh says it's still going to be a Cat 1 overnight, which is a scary time for the storm to hit there.
You know, that's a great point. And here's an example of that, sort of, in that earlier we were talking about how the hotels here are packed because so many people came from the Tampa area, perhaps, and maybe other areas thinking they were safe here. We hope they're still safe, but now suddenly, because of the changed path of the hurricane of Ian, they are in the path that we expect to really pick up in about 12 hours as we will continue to cover the storm here in Polk County. Stacy.
Walt Buteau live for us. Walt, thanks so much. An important note too, the governor said that they've opened up 200 or so shelters in the southwest part of the state. So Walt's standing by one of those shelters that's being used in an elementary school. So good to see that's available and people are using it.
Right. And reminder, if you're out and about, that's not the time. Right now is not the time. This is the time. Authorities everywhere in the Bay Area want you where you're going to be.
I wanted to pan and just going to do this on the fly here, if you would. We're just going to pan to the left because I was noticing something that looks like the water levels in the river have dropped really, really substantially. And I think in someone with a microphone, shout out if you see something different than I do, but it certainly looks like that right now there could be enough of a water pull out of the river here in this part of the Peace River where you see this brown shading. I think that's almost totally dry. And you know, again, the wind is pushing offshore. You can see the direction of the trees here.
That is just sand
So
right
again,
now.
the wind right now is pushing this direction and it's going offshore. So it looks, you know, from this perspective, that we have dry ground right now.
Up until that channel marker, which is probably about 100 feet out.
Yeah, so when you think about that, that's pretty remarkable. You know, this part of the Peace River isn't terribly, terribly deep, but you know, in order for the water to pull out that fast, that's a lot of water that's moving around here. So these boats, you know, they could be in a bit of trouble here over the next few hours as the water levels are going to change pretty drastically over the next few hours. Since we're here and I'm maneuvering this camera on the fly here, across the way is that new Sunseeker resort that they're building. And of course, there are some gigantic cranes. And during Hurricane Irma, something that we noticed, especially over in Miami, was these cranes were swinging all over the place because when hurricanes move through, they design the cranes to move freely. So why don't we try to zoom in here just for a moment and see if we notice any movement with those cranes. That again is looking across the Peace River here. Move this a bit more to the right. It looks like the cranes are holding steady right now, but as long as we have electricity in Charlotte County, that's something I'd like to make sure that we keep an eye on here because again, we're noticing a pretty substantial change in the water levels in the Peace River.
And they keep those cranes up because it's actually safer to have them dangling like that rather than taking them down and having them blow around. So
the next view I wanted to show you is a bit farther down the coastline. So now we're in the city of Fort Myers. Now, right now, the water levels here are, or rather the camera is zoomed in at the water levels. But what I wanted to do here live is just to pull this out. If you're familiar with the downtown river district, you know, just a few weeks ago, they opened that new band shell in the outdoor auditorium. This is that little fishing pier that runs out from the river district in Fort Myers. So if you're familiar with what it looks like on a normal day, you can see how much the water levels have risen. And that's because in the Fort Myers area and areas of Lee County, the winds are now turning onshore. Let me jump back over here to the radar again. Again, if you're in the Fort Myers area, for you, the winds are now moving in this direction. They're pushing the water up into areas like the Caloosahatchee and into parts of Estero Bay. So the water levels are going to start to rise now in areas around Fort Myers Beach, and Sanibel because of the way the air is pushing these masses of water around here. Let's zoom this out a bit further since we still have electricity right now in downtown Fort Myers. Looks like things are okay on land, at least for the time being. Yeah, but that's something to watch there because this storm surge component is really going to get high speed here as this event continues to unfold over the next few hours. Peter? Yes.
Because I know this has been the main threat with this storm, and I'm looking at a graphic that you posted last night on NBC2 and ABC7 about the high tide and the low tide and how the worst case scenario would be the onshore winds coinciding with high tide. And I'm looking at the graphic Point Ebell, for example, the next high tide is 3:11 p.m. Are we getting lucky that this seems to be a little bit earlier, or is this going to be in this onshore pattern, you know, for the next few hours?
A change in the last 12 hours is that it appears the storm is moving a little faster than it looked like was possible about 12 hours ago. So I'm trying to pull up that Lee County tide graphic. I can't see it here at the tip.
So it's you've got 3:11 for Point Ebell. Little Hickory Island was just before 6 o'clock. So a question on our viewers' minds is they're keeping, as they're thinking about potential worst case scenario storm surge, might we catch a little break with the timing not lining up with the high tide?
I think it's fair to say there could be a little bit of a break, but by no means let your guard down here. For folks in Charlotte County, you still have a ways to go here. And of course, it depends on where the eye makes landfall, but the high tide cycles in Charlotte County don't arrive until after 4 o'clock this afternoon. For the Englewood, Lemon Bay area, high tide is several hours away, not until 4 o'clock. And for downtown Punta Gorda, high tide is not until 6 o'clock this evening. So there's a lot to go around here before we start to let guard off on everybody.
I'm not too concerned, honestly. The high tide, I mean, it's going to give here or there a little bit, but I have to say that let's go to Doppler 1 at the wall. It's still going to be multiple feet of water moving into our region. So, I mean, there's just, I mean, maybe we'll save a couple of inches, 6 inches, maybe up to a foot, but we're still talking about this water moving into substantial parts of our homes and parts of our coastal communities. I have this on a time lapse, and I know I do want to make a little announcement before more people start losing power. So write these down. These are the radio stations that we'll have that we're streaming on. You can listen to us if your power goes out. We will be here until this storm passes, until this threat goes on. So we're going to be here overnight and through tomorrow as well. So this is going to be 96.1, 103.9, 98.1, and Sunny 106.3. Those are just several of them. B103.9, I did mention that. So we have several of these radio stations that will be on streaming for the rest of the day through tomorrow because we will expect more power outages. We've already seen that. This is a time lapse of the past 6 hours. And a couple of things to note from it is that within last night into this morning, we did see a big jump. You know, I left last night, I came in this morning and I had to readjust all of my maps to be much farther north. That's a good sign because it's moving. I will say in the past hour, it is just doing this little bit of a wobble just offshore. So it's just kind of staying out here for the past hour or two. And remember, that's what I was looking at last night with one of our computer models suggesting that it just kind of wobbles out here for a few hours. Each hour, we're tracking how this storm gets closer to our coastlines, and we need it to keep getting closer and closer. We've seen a big jump into the overnight hours, but the past 2 hours is just staying out here a little bit and staying pretty well organized. And the lightning count, I don't have the lightning turned on in this view, but the lightning count continues. It's starting to get at that little bit of land interaction, but until the center of this storm, that core of the hurricane is disrupted, it's going to stay on the powerful side because we still are pretty warm and in this really tropical environment to keep the storm going. Sanibel, St. James City, South Seas, up through North Captiva, you're seeing the brunt of this outer edge of the eye wall right now. South Seas 1144, just a few more minutes of some of the stronger winds. This will then move into Pine Island. This will then move into Matlacha. And because it's only moving at about 10 miles per hour, you're going to be dealing with these very strong winds for about an hour. And then we'll get into that eye wall. That eye wall will be a time to relax and catch your breath. And then the back edge of the storm will come. The problem with this back edge of the storm is that it's just as powerful as the front edge of the storm. So we're not going to see too much of a difference for the back edge than farther to the north. Look at the lightning. We're at 21 lightning strikes within the past 15 minutes. Cape Coral just starting to see some light showers push on in. Maybe Rob, do we have a video of that Cape Coral camera?
Let me take a look for it. Give me a
on top
moment.
of the west in there. I did time out the back edge of this line, the front part of the back edge of the eye. So let's time this out and notice the time here moving off to the northeast, and that's assuming that it's going to stay at 10 miles per hour. Placida at 512. That's when this front part of the back edge of the eye will be moving through. It's not even noon right now, so we are going to have these high winds stick around for a while. Englewood, you'll start to see the second part of the back edge of that eye by 512, Rotunda West at 512, and Rotunda at 522. All the while this is occurring, we have a few hours for this to push off. All the while, this water is streaming into Estero Bay, into Cape Coral, into the Caloosahatchee. Now, Charlotte Harbor, like Rob mentioned, it's dry. 12 hours from now, that's not going to be the case. Now, what about the edge? When are we really going to be done with some of the really strong winds, the core of the storm? We're not until 6, 7 o'clock. And you're going to see a bunch of times going through today, and they're all going to be a little bit different. And you're like, well, that one was an hour before. That one was an hour later. We're giving you a kind of an idea here because, one, the timing of the storm could change. And two, we're kind of individually timing out just a couple of miles here or there different parts of the storm. So just kind of take how this is going to take a few hours to go on through, and conditions will continue to deteriorate here. I did want to time out this band of showers moving into downtown Fort Myers, into Shell Point, just before about 1 o'clock or so. Fort Myers Beach at 1 o'clock. If you are on any of these barrier islands, You cannot leave. I mean, we've been saying that really across much of the region in general. You need to make sure that you're in a safe place. Fort Myers Beach, Fort Myers at 210. So that would be downtown Fort Myers. And notice how, because of the wind direction, this is just funneling in. So you see like near Punta Rasa, how it curves like that. The water is just kind of catching right here, like holding a cup. It just has nowhere to go except for right there. What's in its way is Cape Coral. That's the next land interaction with all this water pushing through the Sanibel Causeway and into parts of southwestern Cape Coral and also right around Shell Point and Fort Myers Beach as well. Rob, did you have that camera?
So for the control room, Doppler 2 is our quick source here. This camera is frozen right now, so it's possible that we have lost electricity at the Westin in the city of Cape Coral.
Yeah.
But something else I wanted to direct our attention to in the control room, if they could pop up the Mito computer. This is a viewer photo that was sent to Kelly Burns, and that, I'm told, is Charlotte Harbor. Kelly, is that correct? What was the viewer name?
The viewer's name is, give me a second on that, but that's how much water they said is drained out.
That is remarkable. Remember, we have a very strong offshore wind right now in Charlotte County, and it is sucking and pulling water out of the harbor. You can see for yourself how it's essentially just about dry right now in parts of Charlotte Harbor. And a few moments ago, we were looking live with the camera that we have at Shore Point Health in Punta Gorda. There's also parts of the Peace River right now that have dried out as water is being pulled up the river and out into the Gulf of Mexico. However, in other parts of our community, the winds have turned onshore, and right now that is the concern on Estero Island and Sanibel Island. I'm told my colleague Brenna White has video of Sanibel Island surge flooding. Brenna, what are you seeing in the alert center?
Yeah, Rob, in the NBC2 Alert Center, I'm tracking live feeds. It looks like this one is buffering right now. I was just watching it live. You can still pull it up, and I want to point out to you, this spot right here on your screen is a mailbox. The water is all the way up to mailboxes from this spot on Sanibel Island. This is Lindgren Boulevard and East Gulf Drive, so it's about a block off of the beach. And again, water is up to the mailboxes in this live feed. I wish it wasn't buffering. I'm actually going to step off the screen right here and see if I can get it to refresh so that we can give you this view, because it's really just mind-boggling to see. You can see that mailbox that I'm pointing out here with the mouse, and the water is just rushing through this area. I'm going to see if I can get another camera on this website to work, because, man, it's really scary to watch. I'm going to toss it back to Rob. I'll keep working on getting this live feed here, but Rob, take it away. We do know storm surge is happening. We're watching it live.
Okay, just one moment here. I believe that Allison just mentioned that a new tornado warning.
Right, we have a tornado warning for DeSoto County. So DeSoto County, this is in the far northeastern corner, more of a rural area here. But what I want to point out to you is that this is going to occur. I mentioned that as the storm gets closer and closer and continues to make landfall, we're going to continue to see these spin up tornadoes. This one, the indication that I'm seeing on velocity scans here is not as impressive as some of the other tornado signatures that we've seen throughout the lifespan of Hurricane Ian impacting Southwest Florida. But with that said, we're still going to see powerful winds, possibly, up to 100 miles per hour or so. So even if you are farther inland, actually, I'm going to zoom out for just 1 second. Let me step off screen for a second. Even if you are farther inland and the eye wall is not coming your way just yet, we're still looking at these possible tornadoes starting to push on through. And that's why we want everyone that's why they sent out that alert and said, hey, this is no time to be traveling. This is time to stay where you are. So we did a little pixel query on there, just estimating these wind speeds. 80 could be higher than that because it's a little bit different levels in the atmosphere. 80 miles per hour possible in this region. This would be where the tornado is, just in southeastern part of, or excuse me, northeastern part of the county. Yeah, Rob, so you were tracking.
Yeah, actually, Allison, you're talking about those winds aloft. If we could switch over to the Doppler 2 source just for a moment, we are getting reports of wind gusts now away from any kind of tornado warning of 80 miles per hour at the Kalia Bay building. Now, something to remember, and we can come out here to camera 4 or put this in a squeeze box. The Kalia Bay site there that we have is up several floors in the not in the atmosphere, but several floors high on that particular building. So the higher you are away from the ground, the faster the winds are going to move, of course. And it's very feasible when hurricanes make landfall that the category strength can actually go up a whole category when you go up like 30 floors. So even though here at the surface we're going to be experiencing category 4 force winds, in some of these high-rise condos that we have up and down our coast, the potential of category 5 force winds is a likelihood here given what we're seeing right now. And again, some of these other wind reports, if you can take that full screen so that it's easier to see at home, 81 miles per hour in Fort Myers at the Sanibel Harbor Yacht Club, a 68 mile per hour wind gust right now at Charlotte High School in Punta Gorda, and a 53 mile per hour wind gust here at Waterman Broadcasting. We're real close to where the Edison Mall is here in the city of Fort Myers. But look at the sustained winds right now,
Yeah, that's
55 miles an hour out of the east right now in Fort Myers. We've got a sustained south to southeast wind right now at 40 miles an hour in the city of Naples. So that's what the anemometers are saying. This is what the tower cameras are picking up. Let me jump over
I
on
will
this
say,
side of it,
Rob, though,
Allison.
we've been saying, hey, this is not a time to leave. If you've stayed in a high-rise condominium or apartment complex and you're here and you thought, well, hey, I'm not going to have flooding concerns because I'm higher in the building, now would be a time to go into the center of the building and make your way, not in the elevator, down the steps to some lower floors. Second, third, fourth floor is going to be a little bit safer than farther to the north or farther up. Excuse me. We're going to say words backwards a little bit throughout the day today.
Is this probably the strongest the winds will get for our viewers in Lee County?
Oh, no. They'll get even stronger for sure. Yeah, this storm is still getting a little bit closer, especially in Cape Coral. The Cape Coral, that eye wall will come extremely close. You might, the thing is that the eye wall is so large. It's so large. So you're going to get some of those stronger winds. As this gets closer and closer, those winds will continue to pick up. So this is just the start of many hours of this continuing to be on the stronger side.
Just for a moment, perhaps, I'll take it over here with Doppler 2 at the chroma wall, and then I'll toss back over to my colleague, John Patrick at ABC7. But as Peter just asked about viewers in Lee County, when the worst of it is likely to arrive, remember that, oops, I guess the camera's not set just yet. All right, thank you very much. Here's a look at the perspective now from the city of Cape Coral. I just showed you a few moments ago how we've had confirmed wind gust reports of 81 miles an hour at Southwest Florida International Airport, which is a healthy distance.
Selling your house the traditional way can be tricky, especially when your house needs some work. Repairs, cleaning, showings.
Now, Annie, what's it looking like in Bradenton?
Josh, Chris, it's been constant downpours here in Bradenton off Cortez Boulevard, and just for the last few minutes, it feels like the wind has just intensified even more. Take a look in this parking lot. It's how